When we think of Saddam Hussein, we imagine a brutal dictator who ruled Iraq with an iron fist. Known for his authoritarian leadership, wars, and oppressive policies, Saddam was feared both in Iraq and around the world. But what if I told you that this same man, one of history's most notorious dictators, had a hidden passion for writing romance novels? Yes, you heard that right. Saddam Hussein, the man responsible for decades of war and political repression, also saw himself as a novelist. His most famous work, Zabiba and the King, was a romance novel filled with political allegory, historical references, and nationalist propaganda. Even more surprising, this book was widely circulated in Iraq and even adapted into a television series. How did a ruthless dictator find time to write love stories? And what hidden messages did he bury within his novels? Let's uncover the strange literary world of Saddam Hussein. At first glance, Zabiba and the King seems like a simple historical romance. Set in ancient Iraq, the novel follows the love story between a mighty king and a humble village woman named Zabiba. But as you peel back the layers, the book reveals itself as more than just a love story. It's a deeply political allegory, reflecting Saddam Hussein's worldview. In the novel, the king is portrayed as a strong and noble ruler, much like how Saddam saw himself. Zabiba, the common woman, represents the Iraqi people, loyal, virtuous, and devoted to their leader. The antagonist of the story, Zabiba's cruel husband, is widely believed to symbolize foreign invaders, particularly the United States. This theory is reinforced by a crucial moment in the book. Zabiba is attacked on January 17th, a date that coincides with the start of the Gulf War in 1991, when the U.S.-led coalition launched airstrikes against Iraq. The novel's dialogue is filled with political undertones, emphasizing themes of patriotism, loyalty, and defiance against external enemies. Some analysts believe the book was Saddam's way of justifying his leadership, portraying himself as the only true protector of Iraq. Despite its political messaging, the novel was popular in Iraq. It was even adapted into a television series and a stage play. But Zabiba and the King was only the beginning. Saddam would go on to write more books, each carrying its own political agenda. While Zabiba and the King is Saddam Hussein's most famous novel, it was far from his only literary work. Over the years, he authored several other books, each filled with nationalist themes, historical allegories, and veiled political propaganda. One of his later novels, The Fortified Castle, followed the story of a heroic Iraqi soldier standing against external threats, reinforcing Saddam's image as a defender of the nation. Another novel, Men and the City, was semi-autobiographical, chronicling Iraq's struggles and triumphs through characters that many believe were inspired by Saddam himself. His final novel, Begone Demons, was published shortly before the U.S. invasion of Iraq and took on an even more direct political tone, portraying Zionists and Western powers as villains conspiring against the Arab world. But did Saddam really write these books himself? Some experts believe he had a team of ghostwriters who translated his ideas into polished narratives. The CIA even analyzed his writings, trying to decipher his personality and intentions through his literary works. Some former aides claimed he took a hands-on approach, personally dictating ideas and revisions. Regardless of how much he was involved in the actual writing process, one thing is clear. Saddam Hussein saw literature as a tool for propaganda. His novels weren't just for entertainment. They were meant to reinforce his rule, spread his ideology, and shape the way Iraqis viewed both their leader and their enemies. Before we continue with the video and my further explanation about Saddam Hussein's hidden passion, I want to ask for your help. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs by the end of this month, so I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and help me out. Okay, Let's continue. Saddam Hussein's novels, particularly Zabiba and the King, were widely circulated in Iraq. State-run bookstores promoted them, and copies were distributed throughout the country. Some Iraqis read the books out of genuine interest, while others saw them as a mandatory display of loyalty to the regime. The novel's themes of patriotism and national unity aligned with Saddam's propaganda efforts, reinforcing his image as Iraq's rightful ruler. Outside Iraq, however, Zabiba and the King was met with skepticism and curiosity. Western analysts viewed it as a bizarre attempt at self-mythologizing. The book's overt symbolism, with Saddam casting himself as the wise king and portraying foreign powers as the villain, was seen as a reflection of his egotism. Despite this, the novel attracted interest from international publishers. Some even sought to adapt it into a Hollywood movie, though the project never materialized. One of the most unusual outcomes of the book's success was its adaptation into a television series and a stage musical. In Saddam's Iraq, it wasn't just a novel, it was state-sponsored entertainment. The story was performed in theaters, reinforcing its themes of loyalty and nationalism to a captive audience. After Saddam's fall in 2003, his novels faded into obscurity, banned or dismissed as relics of a bygone era. Today, they serve as a strange but fascinating insight into the mind of a dictator who saw himself not just as a ruler, but as a storyteller shaping his own legend. The idea of a brutal dictator writing romantic and political novels may seem bizarre, but Saddam Hussein's literary pursuits reveal a great deal about his mindset. Through books like Zabiba and the King, he crafted a self-serving narrative in which he was the noble leader, and Iraq was the devoted but oppressed nation in need of his protection. His novels weren't just fiction, they were propaganda tools, reinforcing his authority and vilifying his enemies. While many question whether Saddam actually wrote these books himself, their purpose remains clear. They were meant to shape public perception, glorify his rule, and justify his political actions. In a country where his word was law, his books became required reading, blending art with authoritarian messaging. Outside of Iraq, his novels were mostly seen as curiosities, strange relics of a dictator's vanity. However, they also highlight a lesser-known side of Saddam Hussein, a man who sought to control not only reality, but also the world of fiction. Today, his books serve as a reminder of how authoritarian leaders use every possible medium, including literature, to maintain power and influence. In the end, Saddam Hussein may have ruled Iraq, but even in fiction, he remained obsessed with control. Thank you for watching this video. Let us know what your thoughts are on this topic and leave them in the comments. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more videos in this subject.